because we have a rule. We have like a 30-day rule on settlements. It needs to be out the door
Great.
because that's where that is where the customer turns into the client, that turns into the patient that has a bad experience. You do all this hard work for them, but if it takes you 90 days to close out their case, you're having to explain why they don't have the money. And the answer is not anything bad. It's just that, well, the other lawyer's dragging their feet. I haven't gotten the release yet. Then I got the release and it has all this language. I don't think the language is agreeable. And we had to file, we filed a motion on it. So, and we're fighting about it. And then, or you have a lien and we're trying to negotiate down the lien. So they don't care about that. Sorry, they don't care. Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready because we are going above the legal limit. Hey, well, thank you for joining us. We've got a special guest today, Daya Naef, who is CEO and head coach at The Success Partner. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. You're very welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Well, so tell me about The Success Partner. What, tell me more about it. I usually like tell our guests, but no, tell me more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So The Success Partner was born about 6.5 years ago when I pivoted into doing coaching and consulting versus practicing law myself. Really kind of got born out of a need. I was working with a coach through my coach training program, and she said, you should be working with people like yourself, like someone who's done the law practice thing, knows a lot about lawyers and law practice and how the environment works, how people are treated, like what their goals and inspirations are, what their obstacles are, the roadblocks that we all have in developing our practice, whether it's a solo or small or even a large practice. A lot of those roadblocks are pretty similar.
Yeah, they are. My wife works for a national defense firm.
Okay.
And so at night, we don't have normal conversations, right? we have lawyer conversations. And while we raise our little lawyers to be, and so we're very unimaginative. And so when I hear, some of the internal, issues going on at her firm, there are corollaries. I was like, tell me about it. We had the same thing. Bitch about my day. And so that you're right. I mean, in the business, of law, whether you're, 1,000 lawyers or 10, if you truly are doing not just maybe, you're solo practitioner, maybe it's a little bit different, but when you've gotten to the point where you have a business of law, the challenges are not very unique. All right. Everyone has the same issues. No matter what kind of work you do. I agree with you there. So, and I see you're also a trainer. So I was with a trainer for maybe 15 years, and I think he just quit me. So I hope he sees this. I hope he sees this. I'm gonna give him hell for it. I think he quit me sometime in the winter, and so I really need to get back to that.
Yeah.
But so what kind of training do you do?
Well, it's still in the legal field, so definitely.
Oh, I thought you meant like
a personal trainer,
like a personal trainer. I was like, man, I need that. I really need that.
It's more like a professional trainer.
Okay, well, I probably need that too. So I work with a coach as well. That's pretty new for me. I started a year ago.
Okay.
Maybe just over a year ago, and it's been a very interesting journey. I'd never had a business coach. But I will say one of the challenges that I had as a lawyer who also owned a law firm is I often felt I was on an island.
Oh, yeah.
And people would just say things like, well, why don't you just ask what Dudley DeBosier does? And I said, well, yes, I will just call Dudley DeBosier and say, hi, I was wondering, where do you get your marketing ideas from? Right? It's like, it doesn't work. Right. So you're very much on an island. Your lawyers that aren't in the business side of it, they don't really understand because they live in the legal side. Your staff, they don't understand. They live in the operations and the staff side. And if if you are the sole owner, then everyone comes to you with problems or conflicts or opportunities, and you have to just sit there, and pretend to know the answer. And I don't know the answer, I'm not, uh, I won't be bashful in saying, that sometimes you just got to fake it till you make it, right? Everyone's like, I can't believe you would say that. And I was like, well, it's the truth. I don't know. Everyone's like, well, why would you have agreed to that? And I was like, well, I don't, what you think that I like went to how to run a law school, how to run a law firm school. I went to the same law school you did. I don't freaking know. I made it up. And guess what? I was wrong. I know how to practice law.
Mhm.
I know how to do that because that, I went to law school. I did well. I went to a defense firm. I was trained, and then I started this law firm and I was a lawyer. I know how to do those things, but that's not always what I need. So the coach has been very helpful to kind of isolate, these issues and give context and maybe some insight from a non-legal perspective.
Mhm.
It's like, well, if you were selling widgets, then we would say, okay, you need you're you have to you cost us this much and your widgets are worth this much, and so your return is this, and so you need to do this and back it in. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not so challenging. um but I want to hear more. I want to hear more about you. So one of the things we don't struggle with, but we're very committed to it, and is how to give the best possible customer service
Mhm.
to our clients. Because ultimately, when I get asked a lot, what is your unique value proposition, right? And once, or sometimes they'll say, your your UVP. Someone said that. I was like,
Mhm.
what?
Yeah.
And so once I decode that, and I always say the same thing: we don't use case managers.
Okay.
We don't. We are committed to this concept that if you hire a lawyer, you get a lawyer, and it's the lawyer that's going to work your case from start to finish.
Mhm.
And we still are a mid-sized firm, but we still want to maintain that relationship.
Mhm.
And we think, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like we think we're above it all. And a lot of people, but so the challenge there is to balance, that customer service with growth as being a small firm.
Mhm.
And what's some of your advice there? Because I know that is not a unique challenge to us.
True, absolutely. So I love that you've come in and you've decided that this is a value for you in your firm. So having that customer service, having that relationship building aspect, and that is a great thing to have because you can really dig into that, and that will help you with both the results of your cases as well as ongoing marketing. People that are your customers and clients now will remain loyal to you even if they don't have immediate needs in the future, and then they'll always speak good of you to their colleagues and friends and anybody who pops up and says, "Hey, I need a lawyer." They'll be like, "Definitely want to call." Um, so having that, and then how to, so getting, I would get clear on that, on that, and of course make sure everybody on your team is also aligned with this particular value. They may have been trained elsewhere or been committed to other values at other firms before joining yours. So, they say a vision statement is not just something you put on the wall. It's something that
Right.
everyone has to agree on, like a family.
I'd love to hear this. So we keep being told by my marketing and my coach that we need our core values,
Mm.
and we're just dragging our feet. I've just never done it. And they say, have you done it? And I was like sheepishly, like a child in school. No. Why not? Well, I'm quite busy. And I know, so I'd love to hear your take on having these core values, because to me, there's like this line between like being like corporate and cheesy, or like cultish. Right? We're like, this is our Kool-Aid and you will drink it. I like to think that everybody here knows our core values, but I'm probably dead wrong about that. And I'm sure if I went to everybody, they'd be like, "Why do you keep talking about that? What are you talking about? Get away from me! Get out of my cubicle." So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, what would they say if you went around and polled them on the core values of the firm? What do you think they would say?
Well, I really hope that they would say that I don't believe in clients. I believe in customers, because a client to me is like a patient, right? So it's the same thing, right? It's just instead of like medical services, it's legal services. Patients get treated like shit, right? I mean, so I and that is universal. No one ever says I went to the hospital and I just had the best stay. It was a really nice getaway. It was an all inclusive event, right? So meals and drinks were included. Right? No,
Mm-hmm.
you get told where to stand,
Mm-hmm.
where to sit, how long you're going to sit there. They don't, right? It's like Jerry Seinfeld with the reservation, or like anybody can just take an appointment. It's keeping the appointment, right? So it's like, it's that same concept, right? So what we do is we book 15 people for the same appointment time. And that way, we can maximize our profits, right? So as the patient, you have a very firm understanding of what bad customer service is.
Mm-hmm.
So that is bad customer service, because ultimately the hospital and the doctor will say, well, we're more interested in the healing process, and whatever, and all these other things don't matter. Fine, whatever. There's a surgical center in New Orleans, and I want to go check this place. I need to have surgery just so I could go check this out, because they show pictures of like this bed, and there's like a filet mignon on a plate, and it's like, and they're like, come have surgery and the quiet spa of
Oh.
our serene building. I'm like, man, I wish there was something that needed to be removed, or added. I don't know, that I could go experience this getaway. So patients have terrible customer service, like, so that's universal. And I think some lawyers treat clients like patients. So if the client is, you're on a need to know basis. Well, these are too complex for you to possibly understand. Right. So I'll just tell you where to be there, and I'm too busy for your phone calls right now. I've got too many other clients. And so I equate a client with a patient, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in my own experience, so I represented banks, I represented drilling companies, I've represented corporate America, insurance companies. When the president of the bank calls, you don't have your paralegal tell him, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chopin's not available," right? When the adjuster calls, you don't say, "Hey, I don't have time to talk about your case right now. I'll have to get." Bull. You take the call. When the president of the bank calls, you take her call. So I internalized that very early on, at a need, really, because I started with nothing when I built the firm, but I've grown, and that is our core. So if you went and you pulled people out of their offices and asked them if they didn't say that, I would be devastated, because I feel like it's all I ever possibly say. There are two elements. It's like, we're not going to use a case manager, and when a client calls, you take the call. They're not, and because that's what their opponent's getting. That's the service they're getting.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to match that. But I don't know. So we don't have core values. So that is, I guess it's on the agenda. Maybe we'll get like, people have like, in their kitchen, like eat, pray, love, right? Or like grandma's kitchen, like, maybe like we need to put it up on the wall, and so everyone sees it. But we don't do it. I get the sense that you think it's really something we need to emphasize more by writing it down, maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like you have it. You just don't have it written down.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe.
like
I don't know.
clients first, relationships first, um, these kind of things. And then if you wanted to take it up a notch, you could even be proactive. So you're not waiting for people to call; you're calling them.
Which is challenging.
It
It's not
it,
easy to do.
it
Because
is.
you
It
are
is.
you own a law firm. You know
Uh-huh.
that is not easy.
Yeah.
Um,
It saves
and
time though, and actually it saves time in the long run, and efficiency, because instead of waiting for them to call, you're just giving them short updates on your
right.
time, on your
And,
schedule, instead of
and you're
sort of.
not having to give them the lead up as to why you didn't call. right? Like, hey, I just wanted to let you know what's going on in your case versus, well, I haven't called you and let me tell you why. And this is what happened last month and we responded in this way, right? So I agree with you there. In the end, you might actually be saving the time by all and also building that relationship at the same time. So one of the things I like to think we're like very tech forward. And so I know that you deal with this too. And I was hoping that maybe you could maybe give some examples where uh, tools and technology, from the legal sphere are useful for small firms. I still view us as a small firm. Someone called us a mid-sized firm and I was very complimented. It was like when someone said you look very thin today. I was like, oh, well, thank you. So I still view us as like a small firm. But so I think that's a constant part of our job is vetting out tools
Mhm.
and what's a good tool and what's a bad tool. But I'd love to get your insight on that.
Yeah. I mean, the best tool is the tool that you actually use. A lot of shiny stuff out there and a lot of really cool stuff out there. Just recently went to a conference where there was a lot of technology demonstrated. Um, drinking from a fire hose. It's like I want it all. So it's like I signed up for all the free trials and hopefully
Right.
I will be able to check them all out before they expire. One of the things that I've seen recently is the text messaging
Mm,
features that would be one of those proactive type things. So people
yeah.
would be getting updates on their case in real time or in whatever your scheduled time frame is, and that keeps them feeling like they're comforted by you or knowing that your attorneys are doing something, even though there may be large gaps in the casework.
So what we were talking about were tech tools
Mm-hmm.
for small businesses, and so you were saying it's like drinking from a water hose, and it is like there are no shortage, especially right now,
Mm-hmm.
of vendors out there selling you on some tools to buying back time. And one of them you were bringing up was texting,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going to say this is something that we employed a very long time ago and are very passionate about. And it's not because I love texting necessarily, but uh, the market dictates. I always love, it's free market. I, if you let the market dictate they'll tell you what they want.
Mm-hmm.
They want to text, right? So some clients, we ask them, we'll ask our clients too, like, how do you like to be communicated with? Do you, and some clients will say, email me. Okay, great. And for the older lawyers, like that's the world that they live in. So, when I say, they'll say, well, he hasn't responded to my email. And I'll say, yeah, he's never going to respond to your email. That's, that's not how this, so we found early on our clients didn't necessarily have email as a primary mode of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They may have an email, but they don't check it, or, they lost a password to it. And maybe they really just signed it up so they could use Facebook, but that's not how they communicate. They communicate via text.
Mm-hmm.
And so back in like I think it was early 2017, it could have been 2016. We implemented software, and the moment I did that, everything changed. The entire practice changed. It helped for intake. So our rules, for intake are you are texting the client while you're talking to the client, right? Because it is another touch point. It is another opportunity for them to now have their information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because you in the old days you would talk to somebody and they'd be like, okay, well, great, well, thanks, or I'll see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow, and then they'd forget who you were,
Yeah.
right? So so we don't do that. We text, and so it helps there. It helps with client communication. Don't forget about that deposition tomorrow. It helps with shutting down the case. Hey, this is just to memorialize our conversation a moment ago. You gave me the authority to settle your case for $1 million. Okay.
Right.
And so now each element of their journey as a client or as a customer, it has been aided in that by having the ability to text them. And I find it actually, we have, it's a web page, right? And all day long through the whole firm, every text goes what we don't have. So there are lots of different ways to do it. We use text request. That is the software we use. We used to use ZipWhip. ZipWhip got bought out by Twilio. And then they were like, all right, so these are the four sort of vendors that you can go to. Text request was sort of the path of least resistance. So we went there. But it goes, and I tell everybody, whoever it is, like, just if you send that message. So if you call me on a Sunday, right? So I'm doing the same thing that you're doing. I'm watching the Saints play the Falcons, right? And that's a big deal. I'm not going to the call will never make it to me. If you text though, it will. It'll push through to my cell phone, and I'll be sitting there and I'll see it, and I can immediately give you a response. And so I agree with you there. That's I think it's almost vital now to a law firm that you have that capability without having to give like your actual cell phone, because that's actually not helpful, right?
Right.
Right. So all those conversations I had, those theoretical ones a moment ago, I can download that, right, and then I can save it to the file, and now it's part of the client's file. And now I'm maintaining a record as well as protecting the client. I have an obligation to protect the client's file, and that is part of their file, right? If it's on my cell phone, I can't do that, right?
Hmm.
So I think that that's important. So what other where are you on AI? That's what everybody wants to talk about. I'd
I
love
know.
to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's not an if, it's a when and a what and a how. Yeah, definitely. And we've been using AI for a while. It's just now come out to where this is what it is, and this is what we're calling it, and using the large language models. And I guess number one, do not use free versions of anything
Right,
ever. And then find out like what's working for you, what's not, and then of course check it. You wouldn't send something written by a law clerk or first year associate to the court without reading it.
right,
So that's just basic practice. So definitely doing that, and then it's of course garbage in, garbage out. It's learning, it's filling in, it's adapting. And so if you're making a recipe and you add salt instead of sugar, it looks the same. It was in the same kind of
right.
container. Going to be a totally vastly different outcome and not what you want.
That's so I say this a lot because we use Filevine is
Huh?
sort of our software, and we rolled that out a year ago almost exactly. And I don't say trash in, trash out. I use like a different word because lawyers are the worst, but it's trash in, trash out. And if you put trash in, it's going to spit it right back to you. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to make sure it's all filled out, but we still have firm wide meetings where we're saying every field has to be filled out, because if not, I can't run reports. And if I can't run reports, I can't tell, one of my lawyers, Adam, okay, hey, this is how many cases you have in settlement, and this is how long they've been in settlement.
Mhm.
And so he can look at it and say, oh, Bob Smith, yeah, this should be out now, or that's coming up next week. I need to be careful because we have a rule. We have like a 30-day rule on settlements. It needs to be out the
Uh-huh.
door,
Great.
because that is where the customer turns into the client, that turns into the patient that has a bad experience. You do all this hard work for them, but if it takes you 90 days to close out their case, you're having to explain why they don't have the money. And the answer is not anything bad. It's just that, well, the other lawyer's dragging their feet. I haven't gotten the release yet. Then I got the release and it has all this language. I don't think the language is agreeable. And we had to file, we filed a motion on it. So, and we're fighting about it. And then, or you have a lien and we're trying to negotiate down the lien. So they don't care about that.
Mhm.
Sorry, they don't care. All they know is they had a good result and they're ready. They've got expenses and they haven't been able to work. And so they need this. That's why they hired you. And they internalize this as you not delivering on your promise. And so we have that 30 days, we tell them it's like, and so we do it like a 30-day aging report. You're either up or you're either plus or you're minus. And so that's our goal. And, it's just another opportunity for for failure, I guess, and or to succeed and really get it out the door. But yeah, it's trash in, trash out for sure. I find with AI, one of the challenges is it is a fire hose,
Mhm.
and everybody is trying to sell you on the next great thing,
Mhm.
and being able to discern what is beneficial for us,
Mhm.
and what is not. And I would say, a good portion of our time is hearing out vendors and listening to them and looking at their product and saying, okay, well, I see the value. How much did you want for this? Whew,
Right.
okay. Are you sure? Because that
Sure. And
doesn't
it's
you
still in beta, right? And
bingo. Right. So you want me to pay you $50,000 for your beta software. And I don't know that I want to do that yet. So we're we are lagging uh on AI purposefully. We're waiting for the right thing to come across.
yeah,
Um,
decide what problem it's going to serve for you.
right.
Um, it's like if you get sold on like a big bulk warehouse membership. I won't use any names, but like you get sold on that, but like you're a family of one and you don't even buy gas or you whatever. It's like it may be the most wonderful thing ever, but if you're not going to use
But
it
not
because you
for
don't
you.
need it,
Right.
you don't have all those problems to solve.
Right. That's true. Well, that big bulk warehouse, that's where I spend my Saturdays.
I know, right? So that's
that's
you. That's
that's
you in that sea of parking lot.
that's it, man. That's I get my gas. I get supplies for the law firm there because, which is very frustrating. They don't take the firm's Amex, but still, I mean, I'd love to get to a place where I'm not shopping for supplies for the law firm. But if I wasn't, would I have the need to go to Costco every Saturday? And if I didn't have the need to go to Costco every Saturday, what about all those samples? Where are those going to go? Someone
What about you get
someone
to
else is
pick?
gonna,
You get to pick what you want and order it
someone
from
else is
another
gonna
service.
right. I mean, someone's gonna eat all my samples. Or, as when our kids were little, they would call them examples, which I always thought was particularly cute, as well as it fit.
Accurate.
Right. It is an example of what this would be like. um yeah, so we looked at different ones. I agree with you, a lot of it's in beta. And a lot of it, they haven't finished. Yeah, they really haven't finished building them out yet. I think in 2 years, some of this stuff is going to be fantastic. But I also still am old fashioned in some of these things where people talk about deposition transcripts. So that's the best example. And I said, well, when we were on the defense, do you know why we summarized depositions? Because insurance companies will pay you to summarize a deposition. Now, if Chubb and Travelers and certain underwriters of Lloyd's and other insurers were to come in one day, Zurich, and say, hey guys, don't even put it on the bill, even if it's your paralegal, we'll never pay for it. Defense firms would be like, well, we don't summarize depositions. I'm a plaintiff's firm, so no one's going to pay me to summarize a deposition. But I find, if I have taken your deposition, I really don't need someone to summarize it because I was there. I know that you said XYZ when it happened after this, and I'll even remember it was in the beginning, it was the middle, it was the end, or, it was the beginning of the end, right? So if you've taken a million depositions, you've got your middle, beginning, the end, but then you got the lead up between the middle and the end where you're really like laying the predicate for some juicy stuff, right? So it's the beginning of the end of the deposition. I'll know all that, and I don't really need you to summarize that for me. What I need is to sit down and review the deposition. Because if I'm reviewing your deposition, it's either for trial or it's for a dispositive motion or something like that. And then now I really need to know, like, I need to know on page 23, line 15 through 25, where you said, oh, I never saw the car before I hit it. Right. And a summary is just never going to do that. But that's, like you say, like, the software has to fit you. Right. That's just me. Like, I that's just how I am. Now, if you didn't take the deposition, I can see why you might want it summarized, but that just doesn't fit our model. That's the big one that I see that we a lot of people want us to look at and invest in. I've been really hesitant to do it. Medical records would be another one. And depending on the type of case, I can see the value in that. I've got a case, it's a MedMal case. They sent the records. It's two banker's boxes, but it's not banker's boxes in like folders shoved sideways. No, it's new paper, right? So like imagine a stack of $1 bills from like your kid's drawer and imagine a stack of brand new crisp hundreds from the bank, right? And it's like, you know, you got $1,000 and it's like this big,
Mhm.
right? You got $10 and
It all
it's this
stuck
big,
together. Yeah.
right? So it's new paper. I don't know. It's 10. So it was so bad. I called a vendor in that I really like. He's in the building. Guy's name is Fred. I called Fred. I said, you got to, we used to call it blowback when you would print it. I don't know what you would digitize this, blow it, blow back in and make this digital. It was going to cost almost $1,000. I said, well, I would rather just sue the hospital and get them for free that way. I don't want to spend $1,000. So we actually just ended up getting all new records and saying, just please don't print them out. So in a situation like that, you know, where, okay, you know, that would be useful, but how many of those do I have? Right. You know, and so, and one of the things we talked about today in our tech meeting that I had this morning with my director was, you know, if they were to offer some of these products a la carte, I think we would have more of a use for them.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that some of these functions, they're like, well, you'll do all your medical records this way. And I said, well, I was the one that said she should go see that doctor. I don't need you to summarize. That was my idea. You know, she said, I think I'm hurt. And I said, well, you should go see this doctor and he'll tell you if you are, you know, if you're injured or if you're just sore. And then the doctor said, yeah, she's really injured. She should get an MRI. She says, the doctor says I should get an MRI. I said, you should go to this MRI place and then they'll give you an MRI and then that'll tell you, you know, what's going on. I don't know that I need someone to summarize that for me. I was there. It was part of the life that I live. But I mean, every practice is different. There's no doubt about it. So, I'm getting the this, you know, from my team here. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Daya Naef, can you tell our viewers, all 60 of them maybe, where can they find you? How can they find you?
Absolutely. So Daya Naef at thesuccesspartner.com for email. Pretty much if you put in the success partner, it comes up wherever you want to find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all the stuff, all the places, and all the things. So, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Yes, likewise. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Right.
Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.